And welcome here to our second semifinal match here at the Season 1 Invitational, sponsored by Ultimate Guard. It's going to be Daniel Fournier versus Todd Anderson. Both winners this morning in their top 8 matches. They now fight for a spot in the finals, where Brian Koval and Death and Taxes awaits. By being the 6th seed, Fournier is going to be on the play here. We start out game 1 of 5.
This is a mirror match where play draw is actually a relatively minor thing. These are decks that, they're blue decks. They play for card advantage somewhat. You have your Snapcaster Mages, what have you. Sometimes the extra card's pretty good for you. Tempo advantage is good as well.
Thoughtseize tournament from Todd Anderson. This could get Stubborn Denialed, but it won't. We'll look at Fournier's hand. He's got a pair of Street Wraiths and a pair of Fatal Pushes. So kind of hard to say what he actually has as far as threats go. Those Street Wraiths could be anything.
It's a pretty Thoughtseize proof hand. Depending on what Todd is up to, the Street Wraith is actually a more attractive pick than the Fatal Push. In particular, if he's able to set up something like a Tassiger or a Gurmag Angler, one of those delve threats that you can't Fatal Push, you don't have to care too much about that removal spell.
Yeah, 16 creatures in each deck, 4 Street Wraith, 2 Gurmag Angler, and 2 Tassiger. So of those, half the creatures can't be hit by Fatal Push. The only actual targets are the 4 Death Shadows and the 4 Snapcaster Mages.
And the Street Wraith's also a life loss outlet for Fournier for his Death Shadow game.
You know, that's just really, you start talking about that as a beneficial term, like, ooh, that's a life loss outlet in this matchup. But you're absolutely right.
For better context, losing life aggressively is a better strategy in Modern than gaining life.
Only to a point. Or do they always want to be lower in life total, or do they just want to be the first player below 15?
In the mirror match, you do want to have the larger shadow.
Okay.
You got to go lower.
So ends up here, Fournier is going to crack his fetch for a shock land, untapped, cycle a Street Wraith, but then just passed the turn, went down to 15. Pair of Fatal Pushes. He picked up 2 other cards, and now it'll be Todd with the Street Wraiths. He cycles his. He's down to 13 life off that cycle. A fetch, shock, and a Thoughtseize was 5 damage on the first turn.
If you're not willing to pay 5 life for a Thoughtseize, you didn't really want it.
And here's another Thoughtseize, and it's just lands on those Fatal Pushes for Fournier. Todd will take one of those, goes down to 11. His Death Shadows are online, though there's a Fatal Push ready for them.
Draw step and the cycling on the Street Wraith were pretty unkind to Fournier there.
And Todd's just going to play the Death Shadow into the Fatal Push. Picks it up, assuming that Daniel's going to kill it. Any reason not to for Daniel?
Not particularly. He doesn't have Kolaghan's commands. He has Liliana of the Veil as a potential top deck. He would rather push and then uptick the Liliana because his hand is pretty bad.
Yeah, I suppose the Death Shadow is a 2/2, so if he had Kolaghan's command, maybe he'd wait.
Right.
Yeah, and he comes to the same conclusion. Fatal Pushes it. Draw for the turn is Inquisition of Kozilek. So Daniel doesn't have anything going on, but maybe he can make it so Todd doesn't either. Kolaghan's command is the take. Todd's remaining cards, a Thought Scour, and this is the big one, Gurmag Angler.
Gurmag Angler is going to be tough for Fournier to beat. He's going to need some help from the top of his deck. It largely comes down to 2 copies of Terminate, 2 Liliana of the Veil, or assembling his own delve threats to counter it. Thought Scour, that could be anything. It could even be another Gurmag Angler.
Go back to Todd's turn. And you see that life loss management, he'll play Steam Vents, untapped, take 2, cast Serum Visions. So it goes down to 9. Todd knows Fournier's hand right now, knows it's just a pair of lands.
And you know something about Todd's sequencing there. He had Thought Scour led on Serum Visions. If he were able to produce a Stubborn Denial off the top of his deck from that Serum Visions, leaving it up in case Fournier top decks Liliana of the Veil, that's really where you would want to be. He left a card that he wanted on the top of his deck, so you don't want to Thought Scour that one away.
Yeah, that was actually it was good sequencing. You see, now that he didn't hit the Stubborn Denial, he's actually under delving by 1. He just paid 2, delved 5.
Leave more stuff for your Snapcasters in your graveyard.
Yeah, and he did draw Snapcaster off the Serum Visions too. So you see him taking some time to decide the delve. Kolaghan's command and Serum Visions are the choices. So 5/5 will resolve. Todd's hand pretty good, Thought Scour and Snapcaster Mage. Fournier's playing off the top of the deck. It seems like this is a window where it's like Liliana of the Veil right now, and maybe where Daniel's got a chance. Inquisition of Kozilek, the draw, it'll hit Snapcaster Mage. That's still pretty good.
And having the Snapcaster in the graveyard, that actually is really nice if Todd has enough time to get to 5 lands. If he can Snapcast the Kolaghan's Command, he could get that back.
What about another Snapcaster Mage flashing back Serum Visions?
I suppose Fournier is at a pretty low life total. Just put the pedal to the floor. Getting the Snapcaster on the battlefield also insulates him against just Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah. 9-9. Todd does need to be careful because he doesn't have a kill spell right now for a Death's Shadow from Fournier. Fournier, though, he's going to draw Stubborn Denial, and he'll just pick up the cards. Game 1 goes over to Todd Anderson.
Yeah, Fournier at that point, he didn't actually have live top decks anymore. He was going to get chipped down to 2 on that crack, and then Todd has Gurmag Angler, 2-power Snapcaster Mage. Daniel can't answer both of those with 1 card. Yeah. So we're going to go to Game 2.
Yeah, Game 2. Now remember, players still cannot sideboard yet. That'll be happening at the end of Game 2. Todd winning the first game on the draw, but you mentioned that's not how we, that's not really how we're measuring these games.
Yeah, play draw is rather insignificant. It's a matter of drawing the proper interaction cards, properly managing your life loss abilities, and playing around your opponent's cards.
For Todd Anderson needed a full 5 games to win his quarterfinal match. The 31-year-old here, currently living in Roanoke, Virginia, originally from Alabama, has as many open top 8s as years old. I think the only player with that accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard one to do.
It's not easy for him because he's 31.
Yeah, that's
it's a lot of top 8s.
If you're talking about Quinn Kiefer, it'd be a little easier.
Yeah.
No, but he's won 6 of those 31. This is his 4th invitational top 8. He already has a win to his name. Would love to add a second one this weekend.
He's on pace for it.
Yeah, I mean, back when Todd won his invitational, there was not yet the prize of the token. You have to imagine players like that, you want to get that. He said this morning some banter with Jerry Thompson, friend and teammate, about making a blue Thopter if he wins. Said it would go nice with Jerry's 2020. And we have game number 2. Both players keeping on 7. Fournier will start, well, the full 5 damage Thoughtseize. Todd did it last time. In response to the Thoughtseize, Todd is going to cycle Street Wraith.
Yeah, Todd demonstrating the value of choosing to lose 2 life there. And you see, part of the reason he's drawn both of his basic lands, no non-basics. That Street Wraith was the only avenue outside of that Thoughtseize in his hand to start hurting himself.
All right, so Todd's 5-card hand's pretty good. He has the 2 lands. He has Serum Visions, Terminate, Thoughtseize, Gurmag Angler, and Death's Shadow. Interestingly, these 2 basic lands are pretty bad for Todd here when you look at the card Death's Shadow.
Mm-hmm. And really, basic lands are generally worse than non-basics. In this deck, it's very pronounced, the difference. He's already drawn a Death Shadow. It's going to take him a while and some help from the top of his deck to get below 13.
So for that reason, Daniel might just leave the Shadow, and we see that it's the Thoughtseize that Daniel's going to take.
And taking the Thoughtseize, that hurts the Shadow. You're way more fine leaving that in if you take the Thoughtseize away.
He's just denying the life loss. Serum Visions from Todd on his turn. Draws a Blood Crypt, and it was Fatal Push for the turn. Now you see him on his scry. One of those top 2 cards is Snapcaster Mage.
It's generally difficult to bottom a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned that's probably the most valued card in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter whether you're ahead or behind, or you just always want Snapcasters?
Always, anytime,
right.
Unless you're stuck on 2 lands.
Okay, and even then it's okay.
Yeah, you can do something with it.
We'll go to Daniel's second turn to see what he was protecting off the Thoughtseize. Thought Scours himself main phase, Stubborn Denial and Tassiger in the yard. He's either fishing for a land or he has a big delve threat coming up. Steam Vents, untapped, goes to 13. Can't delve off that one though.
Could have been digging for another discard spell as well.
Yeah, well, he has Tassiger in hand. That play, because he has Tassiger in hand, makes me think that he didn't have the land when he started the turn.
Really wanted another black source.
Well, right, because if he had the Steam Vents, he would have scoured using the Vents and then cast Tassiger here, right?
Right. I would imagine.
Todd's going to shock down to 16 off the Blood Crypt he found the last turn.
Especially with Todd leading on basic island, that means he can't cast a turn 2 Terminate. So you would for sure be able to at least untap once with that Tassiger.
Go back over to Fournier. No 3rd land. Thoughtseize, Tassiger. Death's Shadow. Looks like 2 Death's Shadows.
And in fact, a little bit light on black mana relative to his hand right now. It's not just that he couldn't Tastiger last turn, it's that now he has to cast at most one of these spells a turn.
Right. He was fortunate that the Thought Scour hit a land, but Steam Vent's not the one he wanted. He's going to go for a full delve and make Gurmag Angler. And I guess in a way that's more mana efficient than the Tastiger, since that Steam Vent wasn't really worth anything.
And missing a land drop there, he's far off from actually activating the Tastiger.
Yeah.
So the Gurmag Angler is just larger.
Yeah, in this matchup, does Tastiger's ability matter, or is Angler just the better delve card?
Tastiger's ability comes up. It's definitely a contextual thing.
Tastiger, of course, being legendary, meaning even if it were the better one, you'd probably still play a split. Todd, fetch, shock, terminate, go.
Yeah, the difference is not as pronounced as it is in Legacy, where you get your Tastiger Karakas.
Tough situation here for Fournier. He drew Stubborn Denial, still stuck on those 2 lands, so now he'll Thoughtseize. Down to 11. We'll see Todd's hand. Gurmag Angler, Snapcaster Mage, Fatal Push, Death's Shadow.
It's got to be between the Gurmag Angler and the Snapcaster Mage here. And Todd has hit the requisite lands to leverage the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, that's the 4th land in hand.
So it's going to be how well Daniel can actually manage a Gurmag Angler from this point.
I mean, that Snapcaster looks so good. Todd's graveyard has Thoughtseize, Serum Visions, and Terminate. That's so good. And this is a hard spot for Fournier. His hand, we mentioned here, 2 Death Shadows, Tastiger, Stubborn Denial. The land shortage is hurting him here.
Right, and Todd already has his 4th land drop rolled up, so you likely won't be able to Stubborn Denial anything.
Yeah, my big question here is, what's Daniel going to do about this Gurmag Angler? It's going to happen. Todd has enough mana and cards in graveyard, and none of those cards I mentioned from Daniel deal with it.
It looks like it's a situation where to either deal with the Snapcaster Mage or the Gurmag Angler is going to involve some kind of attrition or help from the top of his deck.
Right.
Decides that the Gurmag Angler is a little easier to beat with the top of the deck.
And he's paid off. It looks like Todd's draw here was another Gurmag Angler. The second one can actually be pretty difficult. And so you see, what Todd's going to do is he's going to play one of the 2 Anglers, and he's going to pay a full 4 to go for a minimal delve, and this makes a lot of sense.
You leave some cards in the graveyard, notably some cards that he's not terribly interested in exiling from the graveyard. You want to leave behind Snapcaster Mage and Terminate because of Snapcaster Mage and Kolaghan's command.
Yeah. Also, this means if that Angler dies, he can cast another one.
Angler is fuel for the other Angler. Cannibal Zombie Fish.
I can believe that one. Both zombies and fish are known to be cannibals.
Yeah, this is completely flavor justified. Yep. It's a little strange when Tastiger eats the zombie fish, but we won't go there. And Fournier just continues to be choked with regard to his black mana.
Finds Scalding Tarn for the turn. So that'll actually get him another black source. It'll get rid of some. Actually, may be good, right? If he fetch shocks, he's down to 8. His Death Shadow is now big enough to interact with Gurmag Angler.
Yeah.
He has Stubborn Denial up. Okay, that's a great draw for Fournier.
Yeah, that fetch land, that's very nice.
He'll play a Death Shadow, currently a 2/2, and say go.
He could possibly afford to take 1 hit from the Gurmag Angler just to make his Death Shadow very large as well.
Well, remember there's a Fatal Push in Todd's hand. Now I want to talk about some life total management. If Todd swings, does he even want to swing? Say Daniel just takes it, goes to 6. Is that good for Todd?
It doesn't. Todd's still at 13, so literally can't die from 1 shot. Exactly.
Yeah. See Todd will Thought Scour himself.
Well, I suppose if Daniel ever wants to use this fetch land, that means it is only a 2-turn clock with the Gurmag Angler. Your biggest concern is actually the Death Shadow blocking and getting larger before damage off of something like a Street Wraith.
So a Fatal Push here from Todd. I think there may have been a timing issue on Daniel's side. When Todd was tapped out last turn, Daniel may have wanted to fetch Shock right there to turn on Stubborn Denial.
Yeah, Todd could just follow this up with another spell in response to Daniel fetching.
Exactly. Now, Daniel might have something else in mind. And it looks like he does. He could have played, for example, another Death Shadow that turn. Fetch Shock, 2 shadows go. He didn't. And there's likely a reason for that one. So in response to the stubborn denial, it's going to be fetch shock from Fournier. Goes to 8. Importantly, Death Shadow now a 5/5. Stubborn denial upgrades into negate.
It is ferocious.
And he'll go for the counterspell. Fatal push, countered by Todd. He'll swing, offer the trade. Gurmag Angler for Death Shadow. Daniel will accept. And for Todd, a fetch shock down to 10 on his own. He'll play out the rest of his hand, which is a Gurmag Angler and a Death Shadow. His Shadow only a 3/3 right now, though he does have the Angler to accompany it. And despite being stuck on lands all game, Fournier, I mean, I guess the benefit of that is he is ahead on resources at the moment.
He does have several spells left over in his hand. Todd now empty-handed.
Yeah, another Death Shadow, a Tasigur.
Also a Shadow here from Fournier that would be larger than Todd's Shadow.
Yeah, still a 5/5, so he'd like one more point of damage on himself so that it is a big enough blocker just to eat the Gurmag Angler.
Right.
Todd deciding on his delve. He is leaving himself Death Shadows, Snapcaster, Fatal Push, Terminate. And Liliana of the Veil, the pickup for Fournier. Would be a risky play here to tap out for that kind of card.
He doesn't quite have the mana to leverage it properly.
Yeah, he'll play Death Shadow and then Tasigur. So a 4/5 and a 5/5. Right now, these represent okay blockers, but just a fetch land on Todd's side would be problematic. But how about Snapcaster Mage from Todd?
That is a nice pickup.
Gurmag Angler will attack.
There's a lot to like with this attack.
Yeah.
Currently, the Death Shadow is a 5/5. You're offering a trade. Todd's likely fine with that trade. Daniel could go for a double block, and that would be hugely bad. You know,
Yeah.
as the Snapcaster Terminate now in Todd's hand.
Right, the appeal here is that Todd, if Todd wants Angler to trade for Death Shadow, and I believe he does, he's baited Daniel into making that play right now. And actually, sorry, his other one's not Snapcaster, but it is still Tasigur. A strong one here. He had to delve away his whole graveyard to make Tasigur.
Well, the nice thing is he gets to leave up 4 mana here. And
yeah.
if the top 2 cards are, if he has spell land, he just gets to draw whatever spell it was. The deck's pretty land light, so you're pretty unlikely to just mill over 2 lands.
Yeah, this is a good way to leverage the mana advantage for Todd. In general, I thought that because Daniel's behind on lands, I mean, he's ahead on spells, but Tasigur will answer that. You see, Liliana of the Veil is the play. Todd has to sacrifice a creature. He chooses the Death Shadow. End step uses Tasigur. Mills over Coligan's command. Coligan's command. I think he's going to get a Death Shadow.
Yep. And you saw Todd, he sacrificed the Death Shadow to the Liliana before activating Tasigur. That guarantees that there would be the 1 spell in his graveyard.
Yeah. Draw for Todd is a fetch land.
That's fine now that the Shadow's back.
Recast the Shadow. It's a 3/3 now, though it's functionally a 6/6 here as you go back over to Fournier.
And Fournier is the one with cards in hand.
Right.
So Liliana of the Veil, that's not doing anything for a minute here.
Yeah, he'll do it anyway. He'll just discard a card. It looks like he's going to discard a basic Swamp. Pass the turn. Fatal Push is in his hand, but Todd's going to go back to work. Here's Tasigur again. He's deciding just when he's going to do this, man. Yeah, before he activates it, he'll just fetch shock.
This is what I was talking about when I said Gurmag Angler, Tasigur. They're both sometimes better.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Tasigur is better here.
This will be the 2nd card that Todd will have drawn off of it. And it wasn't that long ago when Daniel was up like 4 cards to 0 in hand.
Yeah. Well, Tassigur's doing a great job converting this extra mana back into cards.
Right.
You saw Todd draw his 6th land. That's usually very bad in this matchup, but I don't think Daniel particularly cares right now. Mills over another Tasigur and a Street Wraith. That's going to make a pretty easy pick for Fournier, I would think, on the 2nd Tasigur, and that's what it'll give Todd.
Yeah, that second Tasigur, not very effective.
And actually, Todd will have to kill the Liliana. Otherwise, Daniel can uptick the Liliana and then keep giving Todd back the Tasigur.
Right.
A draw for Todd. It looks like Thought Scour.
And the unfortunate thing about having 2 Tasigurs, you can't ever delve one away to the other. They're just going to exist in zones where that doesn't work.
Here's a swing from Todd. It's Tasigur and Death's Shadow. It'll be Fatal Push on the Shadow. Tasigurs block each other, so no damage. Todd looks like he's in a Thought Scour himself. Mills Snapcaster Mage, Serum Visions, draws.
He would have loved to have drawn that Snapcaster Mage.
He still hits a Death's Shadow, actually, off the Thought Scour, so not that bad. Last card in his hand, decides to not cast the Tasigur. This means if Daniel wants, yeah, he'd have to, like, now he has a decision between plussing and minusing the Liliana.
And if he pluses, Todd gets to activate Tasigur in response, so Thought Scour is not the best card to get back.
Snapcaster Mage Fatal Push removes the blocker. Liliana gets rid of the card in Todd's hand. In response, he uses Tasigur, but unfortunately, he mills over a Thought Seize, and that's what Daniel's going to give him.
Unless Todd gets the Death Shadow again. That one's not going to do too much.
Yeah, Todd then discards the Thought Seize to the Liliana ability. Daniel passes, says go. Life totals 8 and 7. Daniel declining to swing with Tasigur that turn. See what Todd has. Is it just another Tasigur activation? Does he have more? One of the things here is you mentioned the card advantage side on Tasigur. Todd's activated it many times. He hasn't gotten very many real cards off it. You know, second Tasigur, Thought Seize.
And unless you're casting a second Delve spell to get rid of some of the trash in your graveyard, it does get worse over time, and Fournier's board position is just getting a little bit better every turn. Now he has Liliana with 3 loyalty.
Yeah.
Be able to edict away Todd on the following turn and just have 2 creatures to Todd's 0.
That's interesting. It does look like Todd picked up Snapcaster Mage. He passes the turn, and Daniel end step fetches. Not shocking, though, so it just makes life totals 7 to 7. There's a lot of good stuff in Todd's graveyard. I'm interested to see how he's going to use this Snapcaster.
Well, if the Liliana edicts, then Todd can respond Flash and Snapcaster for Kolaghan's command.
Ooh. -2 on Liliana. Todd thinking about it. In response, maybe he's just going to activate Tasigur. Getting back thoughts. Maybe it's not a Snapcaster in hand.
I would imagine
yeah, it's
not.
not.
That play does not line up with there being a
Says go.
Snapcaster.
Didn't get a great look at that card. So, yeah. Draw for Todd. Stubborn Denial.
Way too late for that one.
Inquisition was the card. Apologies there. So looks at Daniel's hand. Casts Tasigur. Todd, though, is down to 1. So this is a lethal swing from Fournier.
So Tasigur at least checks the other Tasigur. He does have to clean up that Snapcaster Mage here, though.
Yeah, he just has 1 turn to do it, and I don't know if his hand does. Stubborn Denial, Thought Seize. No, it does not. So all Daniel has to do is swing here, and he will even up the game score. Fatal Push drawn here by Fournier, too. Street Wraith, push in hand.
Fournier knows that Todd has the Thoughtseize, doesn't know about the Stubborn Denial, so there's a mystery card.
Yeah, he's got to decide if he just swings, what's going to get him, if it's there.
Todd's Tasigur doesn't kill Fournier on the backswing, and that's really the most relevant factor.
And Daniel figures it out. So with the attack, he gets stuck on 2 lands for the better part of a game, but it is Todd Anderson who ends up losing it, and Daniel evens up the match.
Yeah, so now we're going to move on to these sideboard games.
And that game, to me, just the dynamic was so interesting. Todd had so much board presence early on, and you're thinking that that was going to make him win. At the same time, the card advantage level, like from Daniel, that added up.
Right. Todd, he did end up in a spot where he's getting some pretty bad cards from Tasigur relatively quickly. He also milled over 2 Kolaghan's commands where he would have loved to have drawn 1. It could have been a very different game.
Well, it's just like Todd drew more lands, right? And that ended up getting him.
Right.
So let's look at some of the sideboards. Okay, I'll start on Todd Anderson's side. He has 4 Nile Spellbombs, 3 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Collective Brutality, 2 Kozilek's Return, 2 Liliana the Last Hope, and 2 copies of Stubborn Denial. Those are his 3rd and 4th copies of the card. In this matchup, I guess we'll start in the beginning. Nile Spellbomb here there's some use for it, but it doesn't do too much.
It's a good amount to like because it replaces itself and doesn't hurt your own graveyard. So you get to replace. You draw a card back, you turn them off of delve if you get it in fast enough. You won't always be able to do that, but you'll frequently be able to stop a Snapcaster Mage from having a high impact. And for that reason, Nihil Spellbomb can be pretty good in the mirror.
Yeah, Ceremonious Rejection, not for the matchup. Collective Brutality, pretty tough here as it hardly kills any creatures.
Yep.
I'm looking at Kozilek's Return, can't be flashed back, so you're not really interested in that. But how about Liliana the Last Hope and more Stubborn Denials?
Liliana the Last Hope does a pretty good Kolaghan's Command approximation. You get to redraw some of your creatures. In particular, plays very well with Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, that -2 ability.
Yeah, it won't be killing anything with the plus, but it really doesn't have to be good enough here. It's solid in the mirror. Stubborn Denial is good. I don't think you want to go all the way up to 4. You know that your opponent's on 0 Kolaghan's Command. Liliana of the Veil is a kind of spell that you do really want to counter, and you'll typically be ferocious in the situation where you want to counter it. Some number between 2 and 3, I think, is where you want to be.
So again, Spell Bombs, Liliana's out of Todd's side. On Daniel Fournier's side, he actually has a pretty different sideboard. Yes, he has the last 2 Stubborn Denials. We already talked about those. But as far as Liliana's go, he has the other Liliana, 2 in the main and a 3rd in the sideboard. He's got a Disdainful Stroke. That actually could counter a lot of the Delve creatures. He's got Kozilek's Return. We're not really interested in that. Not interested in Collective Brutality or Ceremonious Rejection, the same cards Todd has. Leyline of the Void is his graveyard hate card. Unlike Todd's, I don't think it can come in here because it doesn't replace itself.
Leyline's ceiling of it being in your opening hand is actually higher than Spell Bombs, but its floor is so much lower.
And then the last card, is it Staticaster? I'm a little interested in. It does shoot down Snapcaster Mages, but that's about it.
That's pretty terrible value. The creatures that matter are the giant ones, you know. That's really not worth a card. Then the Stroke, I think, is too narrow. There's only 4 Delve threats actually in the deck. The extra Liliana, that one is quite nice. You can deal with more Delve creatures, so that one should certainly be coming in. I'd be interested to see whether or not Leyline comes in, because again, it does have that high ceiling, but I think that the floor is low enough that you do want to avoid that. You know, sometimes you'll cheese them, but likely those are largely in because of Dredge.
Okay, so when you look at the overall number of cards in sideboard here, though, we saw it on Fournier's side. We like Liliana the Veil. Is that it?
Yes, maybe it's like the 3rd Stubborn Denial. Pretty much it.
So given that, Todd should improve. We also liked, you know, Todd was also the player with Kolaghan's Commands. This is small, but it seems like he'll improve after sideboarding.
And you really want to trim on discard effects in this mirror. As the game progresses, as you saw there, Todd was losing a lot of value by activating Tasigur and getting back Thoughtseize every time.
Man. Yeah, they started by about turn 4. The players are playing off the top of their deck.
Just like a Jund mirror, those discard spells are horrible top decks, and you want to trim on them. So, big factor is that Fournier either has to leave those in or bring in a Leyline that will sometimes be good and sometimes be terrible.
Well, is there a situation? I know in some of our black discard mirrors, go back to Mono Black Devotion in Standard. There's this really interesting dynamic where the card was real bad after turn 4, but you really needed to Thoughtseize their pack rat, so you had to keep them in even though they had a really short lifespan. Is there some of that going on here?
There's a little bit. You know, it's still quite good on turn 1, and these decks don't play Spell Snare or any hard counter for creatures, so actually Thoughtseizing away Snapcaster Mage is really your only way to stop your opponent from getting a 2-for-1.
All right. See where the players go, especially on discard spells for these post-board games. Now, over at StarCityGames.com, we have our weekly sale on our store. We have a different item on sale every week at discounted prices. For all this week, it's been 15% off select modern singles. You see some of those here, some ones the players are playing in their decks. That sale is almost at its close, though, so if you want to check out some of these deals, make sure to head over to the store today and come back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. when we have next week's weekly sale.
That foil polluted Delta is real nice. Like to get a deal on one of those.
Yeah, we tried to make these Grixis cards for you. 3 out of 4.
Yeah, I like Chris Pakula a good amount. I'll take a Meddling Mage. I have cast Meddling Mage in PTQs, believe it or not.
I have never cast the card.
I have main decked the card.
Ooh. That one's fun to main deck.
You have to be confident in your preparation to main deck Meddling Mage. I'll say that much.
If I main deck those cards, I want to have a deck that's cheating on that access. You know, I want to Gataxian probe them and then cast Meddling Mage.
No. Yeah, you got to have the read.
I need the training wheels.
There's also a Stoneforge Mystic deck, so just somebody to put a Sword of Fire and Ice on was pretty good.
Yeah, any 2-mana creature can pick up the equipment. So Todd will be on the play for the first time this match. Mentioned those 4 Nile spell bombs in Todd's board. I think to give him a slight edge here out of the post-board games. Both players keeping on 7. Todd asks, do you have any pre-game effects? Daniel, no. All right, we're underway. Todd down to 18 off Street Wraith. Draws another Street Wraith. Let's keep going. 16. Has a Thoughtseize in hand. We can go farther. 14, 12, Thoughtseize. And we're taking a look over at Daniel's opening hand. We have 2 fetch lands and 5 spells. The spells are Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Terminate, Rise, Fall, and then 1 threat, which is Gurmag Angler.
The Gurmag Angler on its own is kind of the best card here, but because Rise Fall can just return it to its hand and maybe bounce one of Todd's Delve threats, you could go that way for that reason. Yeah,
if Todd was planning to make a turn 2 Angler in his hand, taking the fish out of Daniel's hand is very bad. The unsummoned rebuy play is too strong.
I'm also not too big on getting hit by him to Turok in this matchup.
It depends how many lands are in Todd's hand.
That is true.
It's not, sometimes the Rise Fall is one of those sometimes good cards.
If he's not discarding cards, it's probably still bad for Todd.
Goes ahead and takes the Rise Fall, fair enough. And Serum Vision's the draw for Fournier. I mean, as much as anything else here, the going to 12 was part of the game for Todd. So Fournier will go to 15 on his side. We'll take a look at Todd's hand. 2 copies of Serum Visions, Gurmag Angler, and Fatal Push.
And Todd pulled the Gurmag Angler to the bottom, suggesting that that's the obvious take, though Fournier is thinking about it a little bit.
He does have Terminate in his hand, so maybe he can let Todd have the Gurmag Angler and take the Serum Visions.
Todd's also still off of red mana.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, if that's true, I mean, he's not taking the Fatal Push.
The double Serum Visions makes taking one a little bit more awkward, but it's still worth considering.
Ends up going for the Gurmag Angler. And we'll go back over to Todd. 4 cards in graveyard. With a fetch land here, he could make Gurmag Angler, but doesn't actually have one. Casts Serum Visions. No, wait, the Serum, it was taken, so the Gurmag Angler is gone. Draws a card. Top cards, Thought Scour and Snapcaster Mage. Looks like Todd picking up another Fatal Push. Casts both Serum Visions, draws 1, scries top and bottom.
Todd with the basic land showing up here. Interesting thing about basic lands in this deck, you wish that you could have the option to fetch for them, but you never could draw them. Drawing them is so bad compared to the duels and the fetches.
Yeah, it's that life total management thing again. Daniel gonna match Todd on life totals now. Fetch Shock, down to 12 on his side. Not making red mana either on his side. That one's more of a choice than a situation, though.
A lot less important for Fournier. No Kolaghan's commands in his deck.
He does have that Terminate in his hand, but I believe there's a Steam Vents, so he actually already has the red.
Right. Extremely unlikely that he'll find himself in a situation where he needs double red.
And after fetching, it'll be Serum Visions from Fournier. Draws Snapcaster off it. That's a win. Now deciding on the scry. The way this game is shaping up, it feels like both players are going for a control-oriented role. Making land drops will be important, and I assume Snapcaster Mages are the best.
Yep. And that's sort of the primary reason that you want to continue making land drops. Death Shadow wins a lot of games against other decks when you get stuck on 2-3 lands. You can still Snapcaster Mage back your discard spells, your Stubborn Denials. In the mirror, it's a lot of 2 and 3 mana spells. Of course, Fournier, again, no Kolaghan's command, but Todd will frequently be happy to have 5 mana.
And Todd very quick to Snapcast that Thoughtseize out of his graveyard, and we'll get a look at Fournier's hand. It's going to be a win for Todd. He's got Fatal Push, Gurmag Angler, Terminate, and Snapcaster Mage. And the way this game's shaping up, it feels like Snapcaster Mage is just going to be his take.
Yeah, already some pretty good targets in the graveyard for Fournier. He still has that Rise Fall.
Rise Fall, Thoughtseize, Serum Visions, all available. I guess if Todd has no way in hand to deal with Angler, he has to take it. And that's actually what he's going to do.
And it will take another land drop, including the one that Fournier has in his hand, to get up to Snapcaster Rise Fall.
Yeah, so it'd be Snapcaster, bounce itself, return the Angler.
And it takes some time to do that.
Yeah. See if Daniel declines on Fatal pushing the Snapcaster, draws Street Wraith.
Yeah, getting your Snapcaster Fatal pushed is frequently a win.
Especially for a deck that plays Kolaghan's Command.
Right.
Here is Blood Crypt. Daniel down to 10 as well. He will make the Thoughtseize Snapcaster play as well. Goes down to 8. So let's look at Todd's hand. It's 2 Fatal Pushes and a Thought Scour.
Yeah, no Delve threat anymore for Fournier. So the Fatal Push, they have a little bit more weight. He's kind of depending on the top of his deck to produce threats.
Todd takes Thought Scour. So now, with Fournier at 8, are we going to see Todd try to chip in the last 8 here? He can, it's real gross. He can push away the Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, he'll go down to 8.
His hand doesn't do anything besides cast Fatal Push currently.
He'll remove the blocker, swing for 2. Fournier's down to 6.
All things being equal, Todd's ahead right now.
Believe he drew a land. He'll pass.
Yeah, let's play a little top deck war.
Snapcaster Mage for Fournier. Yeah, let's play a top deck war.
That's above average.
May have been the best card for Fournier. Remember, he's got Terminate Fatal Push in hand too. The Snapcaster's not going to deal the last 6.
Right.
Snapcaster Mage from Daniel. Serum Visions. This is so aggressive. He knows Todd has another Fatal Push. Just no fear on Daniel's side. Top, bottom on the scry. And has a fetch land, passes the turn. His top card, I believe, is another Snapcaster. Be interesting to see whether or not Daniel wants to go to 4 here before he kills the other mage.
The message from Fournier, going from 6 to 4, not really a huge issue from him. He's saying, if I can draw better cards on average than Todd for the next couple of turns, I think I can win this game.
Yeah.
Therefore, Snapcaster Serum Visions, that makes sense.
Yeah, and see what he does with his life total. And Todd actually offers a trade of Snapcasters, which Daniel definitely accepts. Draws for turn, and yeah, it's another Snapcaster. He made it through that last turn without having to use the Bloodstained Mire, which is a big win.
Right. There's really not anything that Todd could have done to force that kind of action. You can't currently in Modern make a large hasted Death Shadow. Death Shadow for Anderson. Fournier had that covered on multiple fronts.
Yeah, Fatal Push takes it down.
Still has Terminate left over. Been hanging on to Street Wraith. Wouldn't be surprised to see that cast for 5 on this turn.
And we are getting there. Now, to do that, unless all his fetch lands can find basics, which I don't believe they can. He's going to play Basic Mountain. He would have to go to 2 to play it this turn. Against a Kolaghan's Command deck, I'm not sure Daniel's willing to do that.
Yeah, lining up for next turn, looks like.
Snapcaster Mage terminates Street Wraith, 3 cards in Fournier's hand. Todd, 5th land, pass back. 1 fetch from Daniel, down to 5. Another fetch down to 4.
Doing both at the same time, a little shortcutting.
Todd's deck does play 1 Lightning Bolt in it.
I would imagine that one's in the sideboard right now.
Okay. Certainly could be.
Yeah, it depends how much he likes cheesing people in the mirror.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice right now. Your opponent's at 4. Well, It's close to being nice.
High ceiling, low floor.
Sign me up. Here is the hardcast Street Wraith from Daniel. Does Todd have an answer? He does not. He'll go down to 7. Remember, that Street Wraith has Swamp Walk.
That comes up.
Yeah, no, it's live right now. Todd need a land of his own on end step, so he untaps at 7. His hand less enticing than Daniel's. It is land, fatal push.
Yeah, and you're seeing really the fruition of the reason that Fournier went for Snapcaster Serum Visions. He has been drawing better cards off the top of his deck. Both players are so low on resources. That Scry that helped, and Todd peeling blanks, obviously. There's a lot of space between Snapcaster Mage and drawing a land off the top. But landing off the top is definitely terrible. We're back at Fournier. There's a reason to consider whether or not you attack until you have an Alpha Strike, but I think it's just fine. He's already on 4. He's not going to be able to beat a Death Shadow unless he kills it. And he has answers to Death Shadow in his hand anyway.
Snapcaster Mage from Fournier. Rise, Fall. This is a big value play. And Todd's going to Fatal Push in response. So the Rise, Fall was targeting, it was unsummoning Snapcaster Mage, bringing a creature back to his hand.
It's presumably another Snapcaster Mage.
Wait, why is it not?
It's like your own Kolaghan's command. And Street Wraith swings in, Todd down to 1. And that'll be game going to Daniel Fournier. So, first sideboard game goes again to Fournier. He's now up 2-1 on Todd Anderson off the back of consecutive wins. Yep, going to game 4 here. Todd's back against the wall.
So, looking at the sideboards again here.
And we didn't see any Nile spell bombs from Todd in the 3rd game there. It's still presumably some number is going to be in the deck here. We did see a lot of cards. Maybe it's not all 4. You do want all 4 against a deck like Dredge, but some small number is kind of whatever. Certainly pays dividends against Snapcaster Mage. There were no pre-game effects.
Yeah, no, he did check on it. So definitely not. I don't think Leyline's in Daniel's deck. Unclear actually if Todd has brought in his Graveyard Hate either. We went through a lot of cards.
Didn't see any Inquisitions either, though. Though we did certainly still see Thoughtseize. That does lose some life.
All right, so players can get ready perhaps for game number 4. In the meantime, coming up here, we now have announced earlier this weekend the next upcoming Grand Prix here at Star City Games. We're going to tell you more about it.
On September 1st through the 3rd, make plans to be part of Magic the Gathering history when StarCityGames.com proudly presents Grand Prix Washington, D.C. Register by Sunday, August 6th for the standard format main event to compete for thousands of dollars in prizes and receive an exclusive playmat featuring Hour of Devastation. Select the 3-day Infinite Challenge package to compete in all challenge events for one low price, while also walking away with the exclusive Hour of Devastation playmat. All Friday challenges are also Grand Prix trials. Come out early and compete for buys in the main event and more chances to claim an Hour of Devastation playmat. Prefer 100-card formats? Register for the Ultimate Commander package to play in 4 Commander on-demand events and take home a Commander vs. playmat and Ultimate Guard Boulder deck case. Want to play on Magic's grandest stage? Compete in the Pro Tour qualifier on Sunday and receive a Progenitus foil promo just for playing, plus the chance for an invitation to Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And don't forget to come say hello to Grand Prix Washington, D.C.'s many special guests, including cosplayer Christine Sprankle and an artist alley full of fan favorites, headlined by guest of honor Rob Alexander. Be part of Magic the Gathering history. Register for Grand Prix Washington, D.C. today.
All right, and that is Grand Prix DC coming up the 1st through the 3rd of September. So our fourth gamer will put Todd Anderson back on the play. In these games, it does feel like the player who can take the control role is coming out on top.
You know, in previous iterations of Grixis Mirrors in Modern, I actually actively took the draw. If they were Grixis control decks, that's really where you would definitely want to be. With the Shadow deck, you do have the ability to close the door very quickly with an early Delve Threat, an early Death Shadow. So there's more incentive to be in the play in these builds and other versions, but it doesn't feel like a big downside to be on the draw here.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we've seen with those fast Delve Threats, the players have still had enough Thoughtseizes in their deck that no one's landed a Gurmag Angler on turn 2 yet.
And that's one of two reasons why you want to leave Thoughtseize in post board. The one you cut on is the Inquisitions.
Yeah, because they can't hit the Delve Threats.
Right, you hit the Delve Threats, and also you get to lose 2 life.
Yep, that is also true. Todd Anderson's going to be on a mulligan here for game number 4. You know, but that's really it. You want these early Thoughtseizes, it looks like, to hit a Delve Threat, and then you'd like to stop drawing them.
Yep. You want to delve them away to your Delve Threat, so you can't Tassiger them back. You exile them to flashback with your Snapcaster Mage if you're given the opportunity.
Todd hoping to force a game 5 here. He was down 2-1 in his quarterfinal match as well. Rallied back to win that one, looking to do it again. Keeps on 6. Still no pregame effects, so we are underway. It's going to be a Thoughtseize from Todd Anderson. On Fournier's side, we have Liliana of the Veil. 2 lands. Serum Visions, Gurmag Angler, and Thought Scour. Looks like you have 3 lands, actually. So, Planeswalker, Cantrip, Creature, Thought Scour, 3 lands.
This is a pretty nice hand.
Todd will take the Liliana. Maybe 1 land too many here?
Possibly. It really depends what his cantrips turn into.
Right.
That is like really the downside of the modern legal cantrips, your Serum Visions, your Thought Scour. You don't have
just blank.
Yeah, you don't have any control over what's going to turn up over them.
Yeah, my hand is Serum Visions, Street Wraith, Thought Scour. Did I just keep a 2-lander or a 5-lander?
Right. This hand, it could be insanely powerful. It could be insanely bad.
And so see, to mitigate that, one thing that Daniel's doing here is turn 1, he's going to fetch Shock for Serum Visions. That way he can scry his deck up, and then the Street Wraith he drew actually is a controlled draw instead of a unknown draw.
This one is a little more impactful trick when you're able to do it on turn 3 or 4, because Serum Visions doesn't let you filter and then draw immediately. Yeah, he's going to be out of mana here.
Draws another land to scry. So
obviously draws another land.
I mean, just that if you have all these cantrips, Daniel's hand, now with 3 more lands in hand, he'd really like to stop drawing them.
Yep. And he's not playing Cole against command. He doesn't want to get to 5. 4 is tenable. You get in a situation where you can Snapcaster back a Terminate, you can activate a Tassiger. That's really about where Fournier wants to stop for the duration of the game.
Yeah, occasionally get into 2-mana territory like Fatal Push, Snapcaster, Fatal Push, something like that. I don't know why they'd have so many things you could Fatal Push.
Yeah, that doesn't come up too
yeah,
terribly
you're
often.
Facing down 2 lethal Snapcasters, and then you got to get them, I don't know. Probably not. Scry's both to the bottom on his Serum Visions. Todd will land in a pass. Thoughtseize the draw for Fournier.
That's way better than the land.
We talked about how that card on the first couple turns is very good. Daniel happy to hit it here. Todd's hand, 3rd land of his own, Terminate, Serum Visions, and Death Shadow. I do like how on Todd's turn here, he had the option to cast Serum Visions and just didn't.
He wants to wait until he sees what he has to deal with out of Fournier.
Right. Also leaving up that Terminate in case there were a Delve Threat. Now Daniel did Thoughtseize away the Terminate. Fetch Shock. I mean, a Tassiger here would be beautiful for Fournier.
Yeah, that would put a lot of pressure on Todd.
Yeah, the Thoughtseize the Terminate, make a turn 2 Tassiger. Sounds great. Can he do it? Cycle Street Wraith, he's going to try. And there,
Wow.
what a cycle for Daniel. And it's, extra card graveyard, we'll just go with the Gurmag Angler instead.
Yeah, why not?
5/5.
Yeah. He just doesn't have the mana to activate a Tassiger anyway.
All right, so he didn't need the Tassiger, so the draw's not completely insane. But it's so good.
Well, the thing about that is he still has Thought Scour. It will not take much time at all to set up Tassiger on
he hasn't
top
even
of
used
Gurmag
Thought
Angler.
Scour yet. This is a lot of pressure on Todd. He's going to double fetch shock. He joins Daniel at 10 life. This is going to be a quick game. Facing down a 5/5. Todd's put himself in range of a 2-turn clock. We're going to see Serum Visions from Todd. Draws a Thoughtseize. That doesn't do anything. Scries terminates land. Well, he'll take a terminate. Thoughtseize here. That can get the Tassiger. It's going to have to get the Tassiger. Tassiger, land, scour, takes the creature.
That makes sense.
All right, so Todd's at 8. He's going to go to 3. He's got the terminate on top, but he needs Daniel to blank a number of draws here.
Right. Does not want Daniel to draw Stubborn Denial here.
Well, this is interesting. Death Shadow from Todd. That's a 5/5. It can actually trade with the Angler.
And Fournier, it looks like he picked up Bloodstained Mire as his draw.
Okay, Thought Scours himself, draws again, but Liliana of the Veil is the pickup. That's mighty nice.
Well, because he had a Thought Scour, he won't be able to cast it this turn, but that should be good.
Go back where Todd draws terminate, kills the fish, swings for 5. Now it's Daniel 1 turn off fleet dead, but the answer is in his hand. Todd, no cards. Here comes the Planeswalker though. Liliana -2. Land and go.
And we got ourselves a top deck war.
Yeah, with Daniel at 3, a creature off the top here is going to force Daniel to hit. Bloodstained Mire is not going to do it for Todd. Liliana's going to plus. He probably, he'll just make the land drop.
You don't gain any bluffing equity there.
Rise, Fall from Fournier. Can't actually cast that yet.
Yeah, both sides. One you can't legally cast, the other doesn't do anything.
You must, the Rise side is target creature in play and target creature in a graveyard, and they both must happen. The Fall side, the discard too, I don't really see any need for that. Todd's end step going to fetch as well. Into play tapped.
And Liliana on 2 makes it so that his Delve Threats, his Death Shadows, they're not great top decks. Snapcaster Mage still pretty
great.
strong here.
Seems to be the theme of the match here.
Yeah.
Snapcaster Mage still strong.
That card, believe it or not, pretty powerful.
Go to Todd. Draw. Didn't get a good look at it. Plenty of cards in graveyard. CC Todd fan him out. 9.
Kolaghan's Command would have been a really nice pickup.
No kidding. It's just a land. He'll pass.
That one's not.
Over to Daniel. Did he draw something? He's got the Planeswalker.
The position's still pretty reasonable for Daniel. He either drew something that he can just discard to Liliana, something good. If he discards something to Liliana, he still can maintain that Rise Fall, which should be pretty good over time.
Looks like Daniel's going to hold on to both cards in his hand and just say go. Todd will go to 4 and fetch here.
Guess he got another nice one then.
Yeah, 2 cards he doesn't want to discard. Todd draws, passes turn. Both players still looking for a threat. Who is going to hit it first? 3 and 4 are the life totals. Plus from Liliana. Dan's going to get rid of a fatal push. Todd just had another land. But we're looking for threats. Here's one. It's Street Wraith.
That is a
from
2-turn
Daniel.
clock.
Todd draws. Is it going to do it? He's at 4.
Look a lot like Death Shadow.
Check. Todd does have swamps, but he's at 4. He can take a hit off Street Wraith. I mean, it's not good.
Yeah.
But he's not dead.
Well, he needs to produce something to get rid of the Street Wraith and the Liliana.
I think he had his own Street Wraith. He's deciding whether he wants to cast it or cycle it.
Cycling it means if he loses, he's dead next turn. Casting it, it gets hit by Liliana, and he has to top deck again.
So basically that top card of his deck is going to win him or lose him the game both ways. Does he want to do it now or next turn?
If he draws Kolaghan's Command, that's actually just lethal.
Casts it. Says go.
Suppose that's true this turn or next. The benefit is that Fournier was currently tapped out. He couldn't have had... I guess there's no counter that actually counters that he has a 3-power creature. He couldn't Stubborn Denial
that. Unless it was something like, Rise Fall, Gurmag Angler, Stubborn Denial. It would be something weird like that, which, to be fair, could work here.
Right.
Daniel deciding, he could actually, rather than edicting the Liliana, rise, fall, and plussing Liliana might be nicer here.
Yeah, that actually seems quite good.
Yeah, put it in your hand, have you discard it, bring back my angler, play that, go.
Then, yeah, Todd's basically just drawing to Colligan's command.
Daniel, you see, he knows he's ahead here, that Todd has to draw to win. He'd like to close off as many of those draws as possible. Puts Todd to 1 with the Street Wraith. All right, here's Rise. Todd's Street Wraith goes back to hand. Daniel will return his own Death's Shadow. Yeah, that's an 11/11 for 1, sure.
That's a good card.
Both players discard. Daniel gets rid of a land. Todd gets rid of the Shadow, or the Street Wraith. Here's Death's Shadow. Todd top decking to stay in the match.
This is it.
Colligan's command. Does he do it? Street Wraith, that's not going to be it. So that will be the match. It is Daniel Fournier, 3-1, winning the Grixis Death's Shadow Mirror, and he will advance to the finals.
Really well done by Fournier. For Todd Anderson, it's going to stop with a top 4. Still a great finish for the Invitational.
Yeah, congratulations to Todd Anderson, the top 4 finish. And for Daniel Fournier, it's one more match coming up. But he's got his hands full here. He's playing against Brian Koval, who hasn't lost a game all day.